Hello, in this recording I will be explaining how to use the Integration Center from SuccessFactors to get any data from EC to populate an MDF object, which then can be mapped to columns of the composition worksheet. So this idea to do this recording came from this question here: employee address information in compensation statement on the partner delivery forum. And so the question is that the customer has a requirement to add the employee's address that is maintained in the HRIS element address info. And the problem here is that there is no possibility for us in standard to get the data from this portlet address info into a column of the composition template. So if we look at it in a compensation template, if we add a new column and we go to the bottom where the mapping to EC is done, we can find biographical information or personal information and many other portlets, but none of them has the address. So if we go to personal information, we don't see the address. And if we go to biographical information, we don't see the address either. However, the address is on the person's profile. If we go to Allison Mahoney, we can see by scrolling down that she has an address here. And if we click on the little pencil, we can see that the address is effective dated. We can see that it's made of 4 different fields: country, street and house number, city, and postal code. So I made a list of these fields, and I'm going to show you how to use the Integration Center to send the data for all users in a couple of clicks to an MDF object, which then can be mapped to columns of the compensation template. So let's do first things first and talk about the MDF object in which we're going to send the data that we see here for each user. We're going to mass send it through the Integration Center. So MDF objects are created under Configure Object Definitions. In here, you want to go to Create New and click on Object Definition. And in the code, which is essentially the ID of the MDF, you're going to call it address for comp statements. It's important that there are that you don't add any underscores in, except for the custom underscore that gets added by default. In the ID you give to this MDF, make sure that you don't have an underscore between for and comp, for example. Just put it all attached, otherwise it may create issues in the integration with the comp module. Effective dating, you're going to choose basic. API visibility, this is very important to be able to reference the MDF in the Integration Center. You're going to click on editable. And the label here is the way the MDF object will show in RBP and other places. So you can call it something nice like this. And then at the bottom are the fields that we're going to need to customize. So the external name in this particular case, we don't need it, so we can delete it, which leaves us with external code, which is going to be the user ID of each user. So we need to change it, and that's a key element to make it work with the compensation module. To make the MDF comp integration work, you need to select user for external code. That's very important. Then effective start date, we don't need to change anything. It's the standard field. But then we need to add the 4 fields we have here: country, street, city, postal code. So here, country, street, city, and postal code. If you want to give them a nice label when you go to add data afterwards manually, you can do so here. So label would be, this would be country, street, city, and postal code. Okay, so now that everything is is good. We have all 4 fields in our MDF. We can just save it at the bottom. And when you save it and it works fine, you get this message that tells you you need to grant RBP access now that the MDF has been created. So that's the next step. So you want to go to Admin Center and Manage Roles. And go to the super user in which my user here is in. And in permissions, you're going to navigate to the bottom of the user permission and click on here, miscellaneous permission. And the MDF you just added shows here at the very beginning. So we want to give full permission except for field level overrides. And click done, and then save the changes. So here it's going to take a few seconds because it's a long world. Oh, actually, it went really fast. Great. So I have now granted my user, PS admin, access to this MDF. So before we go into the integration center, let's do a couple of checks and explanations on how the MDF works. So once you've created the template for the MDF, if we speak in compensation module language, then you're going to feed it with data. And you can do so manually by going to manage data. So for example, if we wanted to create something for Allison Mahoney, no, sorry. First, you need to click on Create New, and then select your MDF that we just created. So address for comp statement. So we created the template previously, now we're creating worksheets, but it's actually user data. So here, Allison Mahoney, and then I could add country here and save. And so you can see that it saves the record, and then we have the effective date that was entered here. And if you add a new record, it's effective dated, so it's going to show on top. And when you map it to a column of your salary planning template, it will only pick the record that is effective on the date of on the effective date of your salary template, salary review template. So for the purpose of this demo of the integration center, which will show how to mass send data to these MDF from the home address portlet, I'm going to delete this record now. And now I'm going to take you to the integration center. So integration center, type integration center. And okay, before we do the integration center, let's just check something together under manage data. We're going to make sure that there is no data for this MDF that we just created loaded. So we go back. Just want to make sure that we have a situation before the integration center runs and after. So here we're going to select address for comp statement. And here in no selection, yeah, we can see there are no results. So the record I created and saved for Allison, I deleted it. So now we have no data in this MDF at all. Okay, so now we can go to Integration Center, and we're going to build an integration that will send data for each user into this MDF. And it's going to take very few clicks, as you'll see. So My Integrations is the first one we want to click on, and then Create, and then More Integration Types, and then SuccessFactors to SuccessFactors, Scheduled, and you can now click on Create. So SuccessFactors, scheduled, and then it defaults it to OData v2, which you don't want to change, and then click Create. In this screen, you're going to search for the source information in EC. So in our case, we need the address. So what happens when you type something and then you get several search results here? Well, you have to go through them. Some of them are, for example, this one, or country specific. Essentially, you need to find the one that has this information, person ID, because that's what's going to be important so that the system maps the value to a specific user. So whichever portlet has the person ID is probably the one you want to use. So now we have this one, we selected this one, so we can click on select. We can give it a name, so I'm going to call it Demo Xavier 2. Page size 1000 is fine. And then next. Actually, let's call it Home Address Integration Demo. 1000, we can click Enable Server-Side Pagination, click Next. And this is the interesting part where we're going to select the source field and map them to the destination fields. So we have this portlet we selected here, but now we need to populate the destination fields and find the MDF. So we're going to click here, switch to Field Mapping Views, this one. And then by default, it shows you in the destination fields the same portlet than the source. So you need to first delete this. So you can click on the name here and then click on the little trash, no data, and then you're going to click on Add and scroll or use the search option to go to and select your MDF that you created previously. So here, address for comp statements, add. And now you are going to do a drag and drop for the mapping. So first things first, the start date of the home address portlet is going to go to the effective date of our MDF. The external code is going to be mapped to the person ID. And going down, now we have the city. So the city, let's go down here. There's a first city, but in my previous testing, it didn't pull the right data. So I'm going to scroll down. There's another one which is correct here. City, and then we've got country. And then we have two more, postal code and street. So street is going to be the address at the top here. And then postal code is all the way at the bottom here. So we made the mapping now, so we can go continue and click next. And here I want to pause here on the filter and sort page before you actually run the integration job. So here what we can see is that we could, if we wanted to, as we run the integration, say, well, only give me the address, or if we were to make an integration between the comp info portlet or job info portlet, you could say, only give me the top of stack record valid on 1st of January 2018, for example. And that would filter and say, okay, on January 1st, 2018, this is the record that was valid. And it will populate that into the MDF, which means that this is a great way to bypass the one and only effective date limitation that we have for salary planning type of templates. You can easily create an integration job to send data to the MDF that will then feed the salary planning type of template as of year -1, for example. This is something that, especially in the LTI calculations, come back very early. We want specific data, the salary as of year -1. Well, now you can do it really easily with these filters. So I really think this integration center is amazing for compensation. Um, let's click next. And here another thing that I want to pause and on and highlight is this. So for the purpose of this demo, we're just going to run the job once, but you could actually schedule it to run daily or weekly or monthly and get always the top of stack record. Whenever there's a change, it will feed the MDF when this job runs. So here we are going to do once. And then run now. This is just a recap. Run now. So it will ask if I want to save it, which yes, I want to save it. Save. And okay, my integration was saved successfully and the job was submitted. Okay. Now, when you get a message that says the job was submitted, you want to go back to Integration Center and click on the monitor display. Monitor integrations here. So it may take, between the time you get the message and the time your job shows here, it may take a few minutes, but here it's already added. Home address integration demo, version 1, completed. Essentially, when it says completed, even though it says with warning, it means it worked. I would still want to look at the warnings, but for the purpose of this demo, we're going to just go straight to manage data and make sure that the data has been correctly populated for all of our users in the system. So here I go to manage data and I select address for comp statements. And here I have the full list of all of my users in this demo environment. And if I click on any of them, I get the address here. Oh, some mapping was wrong. Looks like we mapped the city twice instead of the street number here. But if we were to um, redo the integration, we would be able to get the street and house number. Actually, this is a good case. I'll show you how to mass delete all the MDF entries that are here. So if you want to mass delete or mass import, it's really simple. Mass import is actually even more simple, straightforward than the delete. But here we're going to delete this and rerun the integration. So to mass delete MDF entries, you got to go to import and export data. And you're going to click on export data and then select address for comp statements and export. Once you get this little message in the middle, you want to go to monitor job and pick the top one here. I think this one is this one that I generated a little bit earlier. Maybe not. It looks like it's the one. Yeah, it's the one. So I'm going to download status. I get a zip file in here. In the zip file, I'm going to open the CSV. And so in the CSV that I just opened, in the first column, just add delete and expand it on every row. And save your CSV. I'll put it on my desktop here for the purpose of, so I'm going to call it address for comp statements 2. Okay, so I saved this file. This one is a previous one from an example. And then go back to import and export data. And instead of selecting exports, now select import. Here, select address for comp statements and choose your file, address for comp statements 2, and import. So same place to go to check the completion of the job, monitor jobs. So this one is not showing yet. We may want to reload until we see it. Yep, MDF data import completed. A quick way to see the completion of the job is to go here to processed 157. That's the total number of my records, past 157. So now in manage data, everything should be deleted. Yes, and that's the case. So we can go back to our integration center and change the mapping. Go to my integration, and this is the one that we created. So we're just going to edit the mapping in their configure fields. And this one is I'm trying to find the one that is duplicate here. Address 2. Okay, so that's the wrong one. So we should have gotten address 1 instead of address 2. So we're going to edit this by doing here. Here, this is the view that I wanted. So instead of address 2 on the street and house number, we need address 1 actually. Yep, so we need address 1. So that should fix it. City from addresses. Yes, so that should fix it. So next, once, next, run now, save and continue. Job was submitted. And then let's go back to monitor integrations. Okay, my second job was here. is here, and it does say completed with warning, so I'm guessing it worked fine. So now let's go back to manage data and see the data. Okay, so now we have everything, the address, the city, the postcode, and the country. The country, I think in the address in EC, it shows as United States. Um, I'm sure there's a way to get it, but for now here we have the country code instead of the full name of the country, but I think there's a way to get it. I just haven't tested it. So now that we have all the data thanks to this job that ran super quickly from the integration center, all we have to do essentially is just map it to map our specific columns in our compensation template to this MDF. So let's do it together and create a worksheet to wrap up the test case here. So I'm going to go to 2020 salary planning and then here design worksheet. And at the end of the column designer, I'm going to add a new grouping that I'm going to call address fields for statement. Okay, and then I can add a column. So the first column is going to be street. The second column is going to be zip code. Third column, city, and last column, country. So let's make it clean, follow leading practices. So read only yes. We're going to change the column ID to be custom country, address. And in the mapping, we're going to select employment details and the MDF object, custom address for comp statement, and select country. Also, once you've done the mapping at the bottom, you always want to make any field that is mapped to an EC field or an MDF field or a lookup table, you want to make it reloadable and reportable. So let's do the same for city. Zip code. And then finally, street. Oh, I don't need this. Reloadable, reportable, and save. Okay. Once you save, let's make sure that the FBP is correctly configured. Everything is looking good, so I can create a worksheet now and it should populate correctly. Yeah. Okay, so let's create a worksheet for Allison Mahoney's manager, Michael Pittman, in this environment. So in the first step of the workflow, it always goes to comp admin. That's a leading practice in SuccessFactors compensation. So I know already that I have to proxy as compensation administrator to find the worksheet. And compensation. It's correctly configured as 2020 salary planning here, and I can open the one that was just created. I skipped the monitor compensation job steps because I know it created it. I did it previously. And here we have all of our address fields for the statement that were populated. So overall, it took us, what, 15 minutes, I think, to get the address on the composition worksheets using the integration center. And the beauty of it is that, as you saw, you can schedule that job. So you don't have to do it. Once you do the first setup of the customer, the data lives by itself, which is amazing. Really, since the MDF compensation integration um, has been implemented and is available for us, it's really opened so many possibilities for the compensation module. I hope you enjoyed the video and looking forward to reading comments or feedback or questions. Thank you. Bye bye.